Well, what do you think, Greg? Can we go ahead and get started?
Absolutely. Let's get it rolling.
Okay, super. Well, I think I might just leave this image up because it looks like if you choose, you can see the small pictures of everybody. I'm not sure if I need the spotlight. Um, Tell me what happens here when I do that, Greg. Do you see just me?
I see me, you, and Melinda hair.
Okay. You no longer see the house?
I do. I see the house as well in the background.
Okay. All right. Well, what I think I'm going to do is just get us all going. So this is great, everybody. Very excited to do this. This was kind of a spontaneous decision. A few folks had asked recently how things were going, and one person that I spoke to recently who's a supporter of the project was a little disappointed. They really weren't feeling like they were up to speed on everything, so I felt terrible. I thought, oh my goodness, let's do something as fast as we can as opposed to sending out a letter with this state of Zoom and virtual world. So let's just do a quick, fun webinar where we can, or whatever you call it. We're calling it a webcast, webinar, but something virtual so we can share with you an update on all the exciting activity that's going on because of you all. Everybody on this call is a supporter of this project. We only opened this up, this first one at least, to everybody who has donated to this project. And we thought you should get kind of an exclusive behind the scenes opportunity to see some of the photos that just were taken even the last couple of days of the restoration work. And that's going to be my job. I'm going to be here primarily showing you some photos that have been taken. And then I'm going to have Greg talk a little bit too, just share some of what he's been up to and get some of his perspective on the restoration and what the family is up to. So just thought that would be a fun way to bring everybody up to speed. So that's kind of the concept of what we're going to do here today. So Greg, can you hear me okay? And can everybody else, I hope, hear me okay out there? I'm sure I'll get a text from a couple of folks that I've asked to text me if there's any technical difficulties. So let me do that again. Let me just say thank you all, because seriously, we are really clicking along with the progress on this project. It's super exciting. I had a visit out there this morning for a couple of hours with the contractor and the preservation restoration team and the architect and Dean Habiger and his wife Barb, who are instrumental volunteers for the project. So we're trying to keep track, to be honest with you. They're moving so fast. So it's really neat, and I'm excited to tell you all about it, but we wouldn't be where we are today without all of you here on this call. And of course, lots of other folks too. And I just want to make sure everybody's clear, besides the individuals that are on this call that have been helping out, the other groups to really thank too are, and I will never thank everybody. We're already getting to a point where it's hard to thank everybody, but we have got some wonderful grants, and 3 of them have come from the National Trust, which is pretty exciting. So the National Trust for Historic Preservation, the largest one we've gotten is what we're utilizing the most right now, which is the African American Cultural Heritage Action Fund, which was only in its 2nd year of granting when we received it last year. And that was an $85,000 grant. So we've received 2 other smaller grants from the National Trust. We've gotten grant funding from the South Carolina Humanities Foundation, from our local Joanna Foundation. We've had funding come in from the South Carolina Department of Archives and History. It's all pulled together. We've almost raised $400,000 so far to get us to the point where we are today, which is pretty amazing. And for all of you on this call, and I really just started crunching these numbers, frankly, recently, that 50%, actually over 50% of that is made up from you all, from individuals. So really exciting that we've got almost 50% of that is coming from grantors, and the rest is coming from individuals and family foundations. So just unbelievable. So anyway, thank you all so much, because it's tremendous to have your help. And we're not done yet, but I'll save some of that information for you for later. But we are making great strides. So I think everybody knows me. I kind of jumped in there without introducing myself, but I'm John Girault, the Executive Director of the Edisto Land Trust. And this has just been an amazing pleasure so far working on this project. So I dragged Greg Estevez in with me today too. And the reason I did that is Greg is just somebody in the family that I've gotten to know much better than it seems like some of the other folks. So he's the quickest and easiest for me to twist his arm in a short period of time and say, can you do this? But Greg is an amazing individual. He is the great-great-grandson of Henry Hutchinson. He did spend some time occasionally at the house as a child. He sent me a photo just yesterday that I'm going to try to put up today to show you all. It's the first photo I've seen of Greg at the house as a young man. So pretty neat. And so I'll try to put that up there. But Greg, thanks for being with us today. And I just thought maybe you could real quickly introduce yourself to everybody as well.
Okay, my name is Greg Esteves, and I am the great-great-grandson of Henry Hutchinson, who built the Hutchinson house. It was Henry, along with other family members. You had Henry Hutchinson. You also had, trying to think, excuse me. But you had three individuals that were family members that built the Hutchinson house, some of which you see in the photo in the background. And I want to echo what John Girault has already said, and thank you so much from the bottom of our heart. This project and everything that's going forth, we on behalf of the family, we think that it's amazing, and we are so happy to be a part of it and partner with this amazing venture that you guys are doing. So we just want to say thank you so much. Again, we just excited to be a part of it. Thank you, John.
Awesome. Well, Greg, yeah, you are a part of it, and I just want to make sure that everybody is thinking about that too. But we didn't want to take the first step in this project without having you and your family involved, giving us feedback and participating. We need your help, and we want your help and your participation. So it's amazing how many of you are jumping in. So this is great. Well, how about this? How about I just spend a little time running through some images to get you guys as excited, hopefully, as I am. If it gets boring, it is a bit of a slideshow, but I think it's pretty darn cool of the current work in progress. So, somebody text me or shout out and let me know that it's getting a little too dry. But this, of course, this first image you see here, and hopefully everybody is getting a good shot of this. This is the oldest picture we have of the house. This is circa 1900. This is the one that we've all seen for years now. And we don't know, of course, exactly when it was taken, but this, so everybody is aware, is the condition. This is the house that we want to restore. So we have actually already removed the current front porch and the side porch with the intention of putting back this wraparound porch onto the house. So we are still doing some research. We're desperately looking for images of the back of the house, and Greg's been helping with hundreds of photos, but we still have never found a photo that shows the back of the house at this period in time. So that's the big mystery, is exactly what was going on back there. We're getting closer to some good ideas, but that's going to happen in the next phase of restoration. The porches will all happen later. So I'll go ahead and get started and show you where we are. This is an important name for everybody to be aware of. This is who is doing the restoration work for us right now, Artist Construction. This is amazing. We put out to bid because of the grant we received. We were, of course, required, and we would always like to get competitive bids. We put out the competitive bid process for this phase of the restoration. And everybody should know that this project has gleaned so much support and interest. We received bids from several of the top preservation contractors in downtown Charleston that were interested in working on this project. So it was really humbling to see the construction companies interested in helping us with this restoration/preservation project. But Artist Construction was the group that we chose, and we really are glad that we did. They have come in at a number, a price that is unbeatable, frankly. They are donating so much of their time and their services that they're in essence doing this project at cost for us. So Artist Construction is to be incredibly commended for what they've put into this. So what I wanted to show you to start out with is what we kind of have been talking about from the beginning, is this project is going to be working this restoration from the ground up. So what you're looking at here real quickly is one of the piers that from underneath the house. And I don't think my pointer is going to be, I meant to get my pointer bigger, but over here behind this gentleman, I think that's Jackson in the artist t-shirt, there, that's where that pier came from. We removed entirely 3 piers from underneath the house so that they could access some of the sill beams under the house to stabilize it and to start sistering joints so that we could actually eventually jack the house up a little bit to level it out and to replace that main rear sill beam. So what you're seeing here is the very beginning. This is day 1 or 2. They removed 3 of the piers, 3 of the big brick piers, and this shows you what that looks like. Here's where this one came from, right here. No, actually it was the other side, but this is the second pier. So we took 2 off the back of the house. So you're looking at the back of the house right here, which was the worst condition, the part of the house rather, in the worst condition. So these 2 piers had to be removed. This is the back left corner of the house over here. You can see that they've done an amazing job cribbing the house. They put all these cribs in place so they could stabilize it. A lot of these beams you see underneath are already sistered to the underside of the house. So that's what's happening, is that they are doing as much as they can to keep intact all of the parts of the structure that are salvageable and don't even have to be removed, but that can just be attached to or sistered to by new materials to make them stronger, to keep them in place. So that's what you're seeing right here. I'm taking you around right now to the west side of the house. That's where the well is, for those of you who know the house. The west side of the house had a porch on it, and it has been partially removed here. I think the roof has been removed. You can still see the actual porch deck down here at the bottom of the picture. But what you're seeing is the exposure of the backside of the interior wall and the windows, and it gives you a glimpse into the structure and the way they use these diagonal braces for the house. Artist Construction had already started in this picture. That's a new 2x4. So what we're doing again is simply sistering to the existing framework that's on the house, unless it's so deteriorated that it has to be removed and fully replaced. So this gives you an idea here of the porch that's being removed. The siding has all been taken off. We really had hoped we could salvage as much as 25% of the siding, but as it's been removed from the house, it appears that it's going to be a lot less than that. So what we're going to do, and what you'll see in a minute, is we've been replacing it with new siding, and as much of the salvageable siding as we can put back on, we'll eventually put back onto the house. So this gives you an idea. So this is that part of the house. Here's that window right here on the left side. So they're laying everything out. It's pretty neat. They're actually on site. When they remove everything, they're laying it out. They're cataloging everything. They're labeling everything. And here's some more of them laying out some of the framework of that porch. Here's what they're doing on site. They're actually, as craftsmen would, these guys are hand stamping every plate as they label it. So their cataloging system is really neat, and they're tacking on these metal plates to every piece of board that is large enough for us to put a plate on, so that we can either use it later or at least have it cataloged so we know exactly where it came from, even if we aren't able to put it back up onto the house. So pretty neat to have these guys. This right here is Jackson, by the way. He's been working on the restoration the whole time, and he actually came out with the preservation class from the College of the Building Arts. The American College of the Building Arts was our first partner in this project back in 2018, and he's still a student there. I think he may be a senior at this point, but it's really nice to have Jackson on the project. Here's the removal of a very important feature. This came off the gabled front porch, the gable roofed front porch, and this is that really neat, those of you that have seen it while you've been out there, this is that really neat diamond shaped vent that was on that front porch. And the diamond shape is so special to us and obviously to the family, because that decorative barge board trim that was so unique to this house was a lot of diamond shapes, the cutouts of the diamonds all throughout. So it's really interesting to see that. So we're going to save that. It's obviously not going back on the house because we're not putting that porch, that gable roof porch back on, but there will be some use for that in the future. So instead of just removing it in pieces, they took it off in a smaller piece. All right. So I'm seeing some questions in there. We'll get to some of those, but I'll hit one real quick. Sid, you just asked a question about if we're putting insulation in the exterior walls. Right now, the answer is no. There was no insulation in the house originally. Over the years, they certainly started stuffing some newspaper in between cracks and holes as they were developed in the house, but even that was very minimal. There was very little minimal insulation, and the reality is we are likely not going to be putting any kind of HVAC system into the house because all that does is create moisture. And so it's likely, the more we talk to folks, that we probably won't even put any kind of an HVAC AC heating system in there. So therefore, there will likely not be any insulation put in. So that's kind of a preservation aspect of it. So, but still, you know, to be determined. There'll be room to do that, but currently that's not the plan. So here's the structure right before Isaias, I can never say the name right, that first hurricane of the season that came and gave us a little bit of a scare. The crew was out there and they had to button up the house. They had taken all the siding off. So they went ahead and put plywood up, not only to protect the house, but also to stabilize the house. Once they had removed all the siding, it actually did jeopardize the stabilization of the house. So they put up all of that. Here's a photograph of the back of the house again. Here's the two piers you can see here that were removed underneath the house below these gentlemen's feet. This is Simmons Young on the right. Simmons is the architect that is helping us with this restoration project. So Simmons is downtown Charleston. He's also part of the Brick House family. So he's been helping stabilize the Brick House ruins out on his family's property here on Edisto. This is him making a site visit. The group has only been out there, as of today, Artists has only been out there 19 days total. And so what that means is that they have done a ton in 19 days, and it's moving fast. And so Simmons is trying to pop up here at least once a week, go over some things with the crew that's out there working. This is Chris Stone right here. He is the main contractor on the site for Artist Construction. He's there every day. As a matter of fact, just as a little side note, to save a little bit of money, the crew actually brought out a camper trailer and they are staying on site the 4 nights of the week that they're working out here. So they're working 4 10-hour days and they're actually staying on the grounds in a camper to save on the commute back and forth from Charleston and also to be able to put in longer days. So very dedicated group and lots of fun stuff happening there. And I'll just, as a side note, we're trying to bring them lunch every Wednesday. So we're bringing lunch out to them every Wednesday, and we've been asking for our board members and others who are interested in dropping off a lunch for between 3 to 5 people to do so. So if you're interested in that, a quick plug for it, let me know, email me later, but we'd love to get you in the schedule to drop a lunch off for these guys. They love and appreciate it. So progress is being made. This is that west side again. You can see the front here on the right with that other gabled porch that's been removed. So here you have siding going back up. So all that white is brand new siding that was milled outside of Orangeburg. We're getting that milled there and it was delivered and they primed it white. So what you're seeing is the primed color of the white on all of that siding. And so they're putting that back in and they're working to reframe the windows, but trying to maintain as much of the windows as they possibly can. Here's the front, what we call the south side. This is where that other porch was, kind of the front entrance to the house. So what you've got here is more brand new siding that's been put up on the front portion of the house. This right to the left of the ladder is where one of the other brick piers was removed. You can see the brick pier remnants right here. So you have that going back in very soon. The brick mason is delayed. We are desperately waiting for the brick mason to get to the site so we can have him out there and not hold things up. So I know Eddie's not listening to this, but maybe if we all channel the need for Eddie Stroud, the brick mason, graduate of the masonry program from the American College of the Building Arts here in Charleston, to show up this week and get started. We'll get him out there. But that's what this image is showing you. Then we go all the way around to the far east wall. And this is the wall that still had some of the decorative barge board trim that we all love and find so unique to the house. The reason I'm showing you this picture too is so that you can see another picture I'm about to show you, but I want to point out a couple of things. The deterioration of this lower siding, as you can see, even right here above this gentleman, is incredibly terrible. So clearly we can't reuse most of this siding, if at all. But what's interesting is on the back side, on the inside of the house, behind this siding, right in the center of the two windows, there's a door. So there was obviously a wraparound porch that came to this side of the house. And so this next photo shows you what they have done. They've started to remove all of that siding. And this just goes to show you the interior of the house. The walls were so deteriorated or removed, there is nothing here. So there, you can see the upper side, upper part of the downstairs room. There's still some of the wall attached, but below that, there's no walls. So we're going to be probably having to replace a lot of that. So that just gives you a perspective of the amount of deterioration on this side of the house. Now, this is the picture I thought was super cool. Here is the door that was behind that siding. They entirely closed it in. When the porch was removed over here, they closed in this door. We believe this to be an original door, which is exciting. And I don't think I can zoom in on it with, shoot, nope. I can't really zoom in this screen, but this doorknob right here is beautiful. It's in pristine shape. We don't know yet if it's an original doorknob, but it's obviously been enclosed for quite some time. So it's just a really neat discovery, and the door is really special to see. Here's that barge board trim that was removed. This is one of the containers. You can see where we're stacking all of the materials. You can see the tag on the barge board here. That will be going back up. We will obviously have to replicate a ton of that, but this piece of barge board and as much of the original materials will be going back up on the house. So wanted you to know that. I did see one chat question, by the way, which was, how do you chat? Or I got a text, how do you chat? If you look, just so everybody knows, because we're going to get to chat here in a minute, if you look somewhere at the bottom of your screen, it's a little different for everybody depending on what device you're using, but you should be able to find a chat button, and that's where you can type in your questions. So I'll get back to that in a minute, but you'll need to look for the chat button in your little toolbar so you can type in questions here in a bit. Otherwise, if you've got my phone number, you can certainly text me and I'll get your questions that way. Here's the only picture I'm going to show you real quickly of the inside, and there's not too many more to go, but this picture shows you the removal of all of the wood that encased this chimney, which was on the west side of the house. This is a very important chimney because we have photographs with the hearth, which actually had some decorative, almost diamond-shaped angled pieces of wood on it. But it also, we have some photographs, thanks to Greg, of this wall, if you will, around the chimney with tons of family photographs up on the wall. And so we really do hope to replicate that in the future. But this just gives you an idea, and all of the contractors, their first glimpse of what the actual chimney looks like. So let me pause for a second because I'm seeing a good flurry of chat questions here. So let's see. So were the lumber and bricks for the house from Edisto? You know, we don't really know. So they're asking if the original bricks and the lumber came from Edisto. We sure imagine as much of it did.
Let me interject on that question. My grandmother told me, Grandma Myrtle, she told me that her grandparents told her that some of the lumber from Sunnyside went into the construction of the Hutchinson house, which made sense because I think Sunnyside, if I'm not mistaken, was built in about 1880 or so. And I think the Hutchinson house, they started construction on it around about 1883 or so. And 2 years later, they finished in 1885. So we looked at some of the, I don't know if Carol's on this Zoom, but myself and Carol were able to look at some of the wood inside of the house, and we noticed that it was technically the same. So
Neat.
hopefully that helps to answer that question.
Well, that's and Greg, yes, and we're assuming you didn't want to transport bricks too far. They're really heavy, so
Sure.
I'm sure a lot of the bricks came from nearby, but we're not sure. We do know we've been told. Again, if we can ever get the brick mason out there, we're going to really grill him, because I haven't even had a chance to meet the gentleman who's done some of the repointing already just to get us stabilized so we could get to this point. But I've heard from others that some of the brick out there is way older than the house itself. So clearly, a lot of the house was salvage material, and a lot of the house was
Sure.
just parts of other houses. So just like you said, Greg, the beadboard on the interior, you can see a little of the beadboard in this picture on this west wall. There's over
Right.
5 different varieties of beadboard on the interior of the house. So it doesn't necessarily mean it was salvaged off of an old house that was deteriorated. It could have been from another job site that they just had some scrap pieces of leftover beadboard that they brought over, and that's what they utilized. But really going to be fascinating to keep digging into that aspect of the structure. I'll hit a couple more questions real quick while we're looking at this image, if that's okay. One person asked whether or not the house how it's going to be painted, the exterior. We're starting to talk about that now. We're actually going to do a greater paint analysis of the different paint layers. It's really exciting. The class from the College of the Building Arts in 2018, the spring preservation class, one of the groups of students did a paint analysis of the interior of the house. I think they found over 13 layers of paint on the interior. So there's some interesting work to be done on that. When we pulled off some of the exterior siding, we actually found some beautiful blue paint colors on the exterior siding, which I hadn't seen before. And so who knows? I don't think it's going to end up being a red roof and a blue siding house, but we are going to try to get some forensics done and do a real analysis of the paint on a lot of different aspects of the house and determine what the colors are going to be. So that's happening kind of in the next couple of months, I think. One other question I think I just wanted to get was, when finished, how much of the house will be original? Well, a ton of the house. I guess let me do this. Let me shift to another picture here with that question. So how much is going to be original? So here's a picture of moving up to the roof. They just did this last week before they finished. They're working Wednesday through Saturday right now. And this gentleman is starting to remove the 5V metal roof that is up here. This next picture shows you looking the opposite direction on the roof towards this dormer. And you can see this is the interior board, the ceiling from the interior here on the left. These 2x4s right here are actually showing us, which we didn't realize, there were some repairs made to the roof, possibly when they put that 5V metal roof on. So there was already some 2x4 repair done. We don't know, 20 years ago, 30 years ago when that happened. May have been 50 years ago. This is probably a 50-year-old roof. So there are already some pieces there. We are trying to keep as much as we can. I'm going to draw your attention right here to the bottom of the screen. This header beam that you see, you can tell the level of deterioration. You can't even see, but these roof joist studs that are coming down, y'all, I apologize. I am not a contractor, and I've already discovered that I'm never going to be one because I can't retain the names of any of these pieces of the house. But you can see this isn't even touching that beam. So that beam has been replaced, and here's a photograph of that. They've actually been able to keep intact this portion of the beam on the left side of the photo, and you can see where they sistered it with a scarf joint right here of another new beam. So that had to happen on both sides of this south wall upper beam. The left side, you can't see in this picture, the same thing happened. So this center beam was left in place, and these new beams were put in place. But you can see there's a lot that we're going to retain on the roof. So here's an example of that. We've only had to put in 2 more rafters. So these 2 rafters right here are new. We're going to keep in place all of the other remaining rafters. There was discussion today about putting purlins, new purlins in between just for stability and having something better to nail into. So, but the point is they're going to retain as much of the actual existing wood as possible if it can be left and sistered to or adhered to or added to. So here's a very significant picture. Here's the entire metal roof removed from, this is facing towards Point of Pines Road. These are the 3 dormers we have on the front of the house. But again, you can see the number, the amount of wood that's going to be retained. Even on the dormers themselves, they were in exceptional shape considering what they looked like. They just needed to be straightened out a bit. So I don't have a percentage for you. Gretchen, I think you asked that question, but when we get done, we'll have a pretty good idea, because when we interpret the house in the future, we certainly want to be able to point to and tell people how much of the house is original and how much was retained in that originally. So I'm wrapping up here the photos. Here's some of the metal 5V roof that was removed. Here's the neighbor dog that apparently shows up on a daily basis to greet the construction crew out there. I think her name is Lola or Luna, I forget. So she comes over almost every day, and I think they enjoy having her come by. We're replacing the roof with 5V metal, everybody. So we're looking at colors right now. It's likely going to be a red, a dark, I forget the title of it, but it's more of a rust red. Not because it's deteriorated like this, it's just a nice new red color. So the 5V metal roof will be put back on the house. And I'm going to kind of finish with this last picture here. This is the last thing that's going to happen to the house. So once the house is jacked back up, this pier, once they put these brick piers in, if the mason ever shows up, we will get this replacement pier in the back. This did the most damage. If you all ever saw the house, those of you who have been out there before we got this far over the last couple of years, this rear beam had fractured and it was broken. So the entire house was sagging. We were out there today, and one of the preservationists that was with us actually made the comment that this house really wanted to stay standing. It is amazing that this house has never fallen down. There's something special about why this house did not ever crumble and fall on into itself. So that's going to be the last phase, is putting this rear sill beam in. And then for now, they're just going to put as much back on the back as they can. And then it's going to be plywooded up, everyone. We don't know what's going to happen to the back of the house yet. So it's just going to be put structurally back up with plywood until we determine what's going to happen to the back of the house. So that's the photo element of this for me. And what I thought I would do at this point is take a look to see if there's any more chat questions before we kind of segue over to anything else. Hey, Greg, we can see you there, sir.
I can see everybody now.
All right.
Cool.
You know, we had a pretty heavy conversation this morning about whether the house would look pristine. Greg, somebody was asking if the house would look pristine or if it would continue to look rustic and you know, kind of in a distressed state. I think we all love the distressed state. I'm just going to tell you all right now what my kind of epiphany or thought was this morning as I looked at that and talked through it with a few folks, is that the whole idea of interpreting this house is to interpret the story of the Hutchinson family and the amazement of Henry Hutchinson and his father and his family after him, and their ability to prosper in such difficult times. So my thought is, I want this house to look beautiful. I want you to look at it like it was the first day Henry finished the house. So you see how gorgeous and sparkling and amazing it was. As much as we love the distressed look because it's so cool and nostalgic looking, I think this house deserves to have it look like it did when Henry finished it for Rosa as a wedding present. So that's my latest throw in to the whole crew. But you all, we want your feedback too. So please, you know, email, chime in. But there will be opportunity in the future to get feedback from folks. So tough decisions to be made ahead, but very exciting. Can't believe where we are to this point, and we'll answer some more questions. But for now, let's throw it to you, Greg. I'd love to get you to kind of share with folks maybe a little bit more of the journey you've had over the last 2 or 3 years since this project has started, and anything you want to talk about, but love for sure to hear about what you think of what's happening right now.
Well, I want to say on behalf of the family, I think initially we felt some type of way about losing our family home because it's been in our home since 1885. This home was built probably 15 years out of slavery. So if you can think of that way, it was built by three brothers, Henry Hutchinson, Jack Miller, and actually their uncle, John Pearson Hutchinson. John Pearson Hutchinson, um, he was actually on Peters Point Plantation, but he eventually moved to Charleston. And if you're familiar with Charleston on Radcliffe Street in Charleston, South Carolina, he also built the church there, okay, which is also in the historical society nationally. But it featured a wraparound porch, and this house, I was told, had a panoramic view, and they can see all the way back to the creek. It's not like it is now, where there's a lot of trees and brush and everything. You can actually see all the way to the creek, and they had the panoramic view of the fields and other things like that. Just to let you know, they had a lot of trees. They had a lot of fruit trees. Trying to think of some pecan, fig, orange, peach, apple, and so on. So they had a lot of trees that they used. They had chicken coops, and they tended to hogs, and they were farmers. Okay, they had fields. They grew vegetables and cotton and all kinds of things. So this restoration is very special to us. And again, we'd like to thank everybody. I see my friend Randall. Yes, Randall. Hey, friend. I didn't know you was on here. But I do want to say this. If the land trust hadn't bought this property, it probably would have crumbled to the ground. Okay? Like I said, at first, the family felt some type of way, and that was because how it was sold. Okay? But we realize now that it fell into the right hands. And I told John that he and the land trust has the same vision as my grandmother, because she used to talk about the Hutchinson house. Oh my goodness. I think I was maybe 12, 13 years old. I could hear her on the phone, talking to different people about, getting a Hutchinson house restored. So you're talking about in the 70s where it actually started, and possibly before then. And that's just from my memories. So this is really special, and we are glad to partner with this effort. I just want to say, and it's not just about the Hutchinson house. I want to say this too. Hutchinson house, it just represent one house, but there were many houses that were or constructed during the Reconstruction period. You have the John Thorne house that's still standing, but there were many other houses. And also, I want to talk about the community, around about that time. Everybody relied on each other. As you know, Edisto was an island, and everybody was self-sufficient, but they were also interdependent with each other. And that went for both black and white. Okay, so I just want to point that out. So it was a very close-knit community. They looked out for each other. I've heard my grandmother always say, if they killed a hog, they would call the whole neighborhood, say, hey, we killed a hog, come get a piece. Or somebody was in the creek, hey, we got some extra crabs or clams or whatever. And that's just how, the community took care of each other. So we are very excited, and this extends to the Gullah Geechee community, not just the Hutchinson house. So when you see this National Historic Treasure, or this historic treasure. I want you to think not only of just the Hutchinson House, but the whole Gullah community on Edisto. And I think that's what it really represents.
Well, Greg, that's a good little segue for me to jump in for a minute too, because this project obviously is based around your family, your heritage in the house, but it is going to tell a much greater story of Edisto Island, and very timely for this little webcast. Those of you that are supporters of the Edisto Museum, Gretchen sent out a really neat email yesterday, part of her weekly emails of trivia, if you will, for Edisto history, and it was based entirely on slavery on Edisto Island. And one of the things that she mentioned on there was the number of plantations. I think it was 62 plantations on Edisto at one time. So we had over approximately 94% of the population on Edisto were enslaved people. So we have got a story to tell here. And what we haven't necessarily told everybody, Greg, about the house and the grounds, the story is going to be about the land as well. The Land Trust wants to make sure that we help interpret the land the best that we can. We talk about the agriculture, the cotton industry on Edisto Island. Henry was ginning cotton. We haven't talked about that during this call. There's so many places to go to. I mean, so many rabbit holes we could go down talking about your family's history and the history of the island, but it will all tie together because this property is part of a co-op that Jim Hutchinson, as all of you probably know, purchased for a large number of community members. But this wasn't the only area that happened. It was happening throughout the island. We just happened to be focusing on this one area, but it will be able to be utilized as an example of what was happening on a greater scale throughout Edisto Island. So it's going to be a tremendous story, but the really exciting thing that we haven't truly shared with too many folks, unless you've picked it up in some of our social media or perhaps even in our newsletter, is that we've done historic title research of the property, and it does appear pretty definitely that it was part of Paul Grimble's original land grant on Edisto. So the very first land grant, Point of Pines Plantation and Paul Grimble's property, encompassed the area and the land where the Hutchinson House currently is. So we've got a story to tell from the very first white settlement on Edisto that does appear to have had enslaved people on it from the early 1700s, from some of the archaeology that we've already done through the pottery shards that they found on the Hutchinson site. So we're going to have a story to tell here of all things Edisto, from the beginning of white settlers, perhaps not getting into the Native American side of things, but from the first white settlers through today. So you're right, Greg, your family is going to be the catalyst for that, but it's going to be an opportunity and a monument to the African American community and life before and after the Civil War. So it's going to be pretty exciting. So that interpretation is yet to come, but we want everybody's input on that. So we are open to feedback, and of course the family continues to be a big part of that discussion as we plug forward. So I kind of digress there. Somebody asked the question, and I was just about to look for it, but I'm going to have to find it. So you're going to have to talk a little bit more, Greg. There was a request for that photo you sent to me that I teased out in the beginning of you as a young boy on the porch. So can you share a little bit? You've written 2 books in a very short period of time, and I'd love for you just to share with everybody, if they aren't aware of the books that you've written, because they should get them if they don't have them already.
Okay, one of the books is, actually I have my shirt on, if you can see it. I don't know if you can see it on the camera there. But anyway, the book is called Edisto Island, The African American Journey. I wrote this book. This book is told from the African American experience. Just to let you know, Gretchen Smith, she linked me up with a gentleman by the name of Charles Spencer. And Charles Spencer wrote an amazing 2 volumes on Edisto Island. And it was packed with incredible information. But in that book, he said that one of the things that he was disappointed about in his book was that the African American experience, particularly in the 20th century, was not told. And he did went on and said he wished somebody came along and filled that gap. And when I started reading books about Edisto Island, I think Carol gave me a book. I'm trying to remember what it was called. I think it was Wicked Edisto. But anyway, I started reading a lot of books. I think I probably read about maybe 20 books about Edisto Island. And I became disturbed. I'll be honest with you. I became disturbed. And the reason why I became disturbed was, for the most part, when it comes to African American history, African Americans are pretty much left out, or they don't tell our story right, or it's minimized. So that was one of the catalysts for me to write this book. At the time, my sister Arlene, she was going through some things, and my mom, and also my grandmother Myrtle. So those were the catalysts for me to write this book. And in this book, it talks about the African American journey, talking about history and culture on Edisto Island. Okay, it's packed full of pictures and different events and people that you may or may not have heard of. It talks about kings and queens. It talks about the Civil War. It talks about after the Civil War. It talks about plantation. It talks about after freedom. And it talks about some of the major changes for Edisto. And then it also talks about the contributions for African Americans, toward Edisto Island. And a lot of this was never told. For instance, and I know I'm going on and on about the book, but since you asked, for instance, many people never knew that almost every structure, hear me well now, almost every structure on the island, that includes schools, churches, barns, and so on, homes, was built by African American labor or know-how. Okay. I was also told that Peters Point plantation, you had African American artisans, carpenters that built that, Trinity. Also, the Edisto Presbyterian Church. So I can go on and on. But not only does the book reflects on things about Edisto, it talks about some of the people who were probably left out. And it ends with white allies. And I thought that was important because I think that rounds out the story to put the white allies in this book, because it's part of Edisto Island history. Okay? How's that?
That's awesome.
Okay.
That's awesome, Greg. No, it's tremendous that you picked up that torch and went for it, because it's a great story, and I hope you're not done. I hope you keep researching and writing and expanding on that story, because it's one that needs to be told. And I'm trying to recruit Greg to do even further research on the Hutchinson house. So I think I've twisted his arm enough to steer back towards his own family's heritage. You've been doing tons of family research too. I did find the photo, by the way, so I'm going to close with that. Yeah. And we're going to try to wrap up here at 6 for everybody, just to make this an hour long. So that gives us about 7 or so more minutes. But Greg, you've done a lot of work on your family tree and your family history, and that's going to play big into the Hutchinson house interpretation, because the house itself will be inside the house. We'll be telling the story of the Hutchinson family. Outside the house and on the grounds, which we now have about 20 acres to interpret, we'll have walking trails and areas where folks can learn more about agriculture and plantation life and everything everything Edisto. So, but your family tree, you gave me an astounding number the other day. Can you share with everybody what you've discovered?
Yeah, on Edisto Island, I started researching ancestry, and I've been a member of Ancestry, I think, since I want to say around about 2005, 2006. But as I started plugging in people and researching and, digging, I'm finding out that everybody on Edisto are related either by blood or by marriage. Even in the surrounding area, you got the Seabrooks, the Maggots, the Shines, the Wrights, the Floods, the Browns, the Murrays, the Bennetts, the Campbells. But I'll go a step further. Blacks and whites are related on Edisto by blood or by marriage. A lot of people may or may not know. Me and Carol are cousins. I don't know if Fran Caldwell, is Fran on here? Okay, I'm not sure if she is. She's a cousin of mine. Gretchen, by default, she's my sister. So so we all connected. We all related. But that's fun to do as well. I think Ancestry told me that I had the biggest tree as far as Edisto Island right now, but it's still growing. It's growing. So you can imagine, all of these people that's on there. And I just did my DNA. So I do have black and white confirmed relatives. Just so you know.
Well, Greg, we've always been told that Jim was born. We know he was born on Point of Pines plantation, and his mother was enslaved there. But it's always been told that his father was Isaac Jenkins Michael. So that is a story to be told in the future, but certainly one that would fold in understandably into this story. So we look forward to that. Carol, it's time for you to get your DNA test and maybe some others, and let's keep digging into this story. But it is important, Greg, especially in this time in our country. I mean, we all know that the conversations about racial inequity that's going on, and we really do, even as we started this project, knew that it could stand as a monument to
Sure.
African American life on Edisto, and so. We're all, everybody here who's supporting it clearly is supportive of that. And so thank you all again for everything you're doing, Greg, to help out, and everybody that's on this call that's helping out. I'll just give you a real quick, and then Greg, I'll let you say any last words that you have before I show that young boy photo of you. But we are going to be starting to tee up. We've been working on the planning for the final capital campaign to finish off the project. And we're working on budget numbers. We now have the contractors on site. We've got architectural work that's being done to help us understand the scope of finishing off the exterior and then preserving and or restoring the interior as that decision's made. So we'll have some hard numbers in the not too distant future. So you will be hearing back from us. We will hopefully have a capital campaign plan together in the next couple of months. That will take a couple of years, I'm sure, to bring to fruition. It will include an endowment so that we'll have funds to support the project moving into the future. But there is still a bit of a lift to go. I mentioned we've raised almost $400,000, which is amazing. And I know we can double that and do even more, which we're going to need to do to get us to the finish line. But thanks everybody for what you've been doing. And if I don't see any more necessary questions at this point, but we're so proud of everything that's happening. So thanks for what everyone's doing. Greg, any parting words from you as I share my screen and put this photo of you up here?
Not really. John always talks about, as far as, the Hutchinson house, but I never lived in the Hutchinson house, but we had spent a couple of Christmases. And as you can see on this picture was taken, I want to say around about 1970, trying to think, maybe 74, 75. or so. In that picture, I looked like I was about maybe 9. Gloria, my sister, is in this picture. I'm thinking she was about maybe 7 or so. And then my Aunt Jean is standing behind her. My dad is seated next to me. And in the front there is my cousin Tony. But this was on the porch, and you can see the shutters on the house that was at the Hutchinson house. We didn't call it the Hutchinson house, but you understand. That was our family.
I love it. I love that you found that picture. Greg, you've been amazing. You've given us so many documents and photos to pour through and to work on. And you saved maybe one of the best ones for last. I love this 9-year-old picture of you. It's pretty special to have you on the house. And Gloria, sassy looking Gloria up there. So
Yeah,
that's really neat. Well, y'all, more to come. We've got a wonderful video, by the way, that let me mention a few more things real quick that I forgot about. A wonderful video that we're producing that we will have in the next, a couple of months, I hope, that we'll be sharing with everybody about the house, and it will help us with the future fundraising. We have some exciting news. The National Trust has their own magazine, if you were not aware, but the National Trust for Historic Preservation has Preservation Magazine, and they're going to be featuring the Hutchinson House in their winter edition, which comes out in January. So they are writing the story now and sending out a photographer soon. So we're going to get some nice national attention in January. And I think Robert Barr from the Post and Courier is coming out to the site tomorrow to work on a little updated story on the progress that's happening. So getting a lot of attention, everybody. And you guys are all amazing for being a big part of it. So with that, I think it's right at 6. So if it's okay, I think we're going to sign off and say thank you one last time. Yeah, Greg?
I have one other thing I want to say. I
Do it.
want to say the restoration of the Hutchinson house. This has been the answer to our family's prayers, and it fulfills my grandmother's lifelong wish to see this place to become so like a museum or a hub to help educate future generations. And it'll serve as a long-lasting monument, not only to the people of Edisto, but a testament to the enduring symbol of economic empowerment and a spirit of resilience to the newly freed slave people in the Low Country. So that's my parting words.
Okay, that's a beautiful way to end, Greg. Thank you, Greg, and thank you, everybody. We have a safe and healthy and well
This is water,
Labor Day
by the
weekend.
way. This
All
is
right.
water.
Good for you. All right. Well, I'm going to end for everybody. Thank you all so much. Please email if you have questions or thoughts later, and we'll connect soon. Okay. Take care. Bye, everyone.
Bye.